Hey everybody, this is Ben Atkinson from LinkedIn, and this is our interview series, Inspiring Leadership. This week's entitled, You Get Out of Life What You Put In. And as always, we have Jonathan Bowman-Perks with us to host the show. And who've got the show this week, Jonathan?
Thanks, Ben, and welcome to my favorite time of the week. And I'm here from Snowdonia, where I'm joining you and breaking the holiday. But we're very lucky to have Nick Hine. And Nick, I met through my wife, Lee Bowman-Perks. Nick very kindly has given wisdom and advice to the Inspiring Leadership Trust charity for vulnerable girls. He's a very generous man of his time. But Nick, you bring a wealth of experience, and that's what Ben and I were excited about having you on this series. Your primary 30 years of employment law experience is incredibly invaluable to us, but just the wealth of different things you've done. So you began life in merchant banking. Wasn't that a marvelous old name in the city of London before the Big Bang?
Gosh, yes.
It's great to have you here. You also were a Met police officer for 7.5 years. You did your law degree, you became a barrister, then you became a solicitor, and you specialized in employment law, tribunals, and people with also different contracts and things that go on with employment law, which at the moment is actually very timely for many people at the moment. We're going through a lot of changes we're talking about with COVID-19 and the world of work being very different. But when you're not busy as you are giving people sage advice on employment law and how to get good deals and make sure their contracts are sound and watertight, you also sail the Atlantic and enjoy skippering that. You also like skiing, and Austrian described you as being pretty good for an Englishman, which means you're a standing skier. You have a house with your family in Italy, as well as being in this country, though you haven't had the chance to visit it during the lockdown, but a wealth of experience. So, Nick, welcome. It's lovely having you on the series.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, Ben and I are looking forward to this. And we'll do a double act between us, but let me firstly begin with now. Tell us a bit about your current role and some of those important aspects of the role and what you do to help people, because people listening to this, all our CEOs, will be very interested in the kind of skills that you bring.
Yes, so I run an employment law boutique called Hine Legal, and really my role is to help clients and basically companies and individuals who have a diverse range of employment issues they may need help with. Particularly in lockdown, initially it was a lot of help with companies because of the furlough scheme and the new initiatives that the Chancellor was putting in place. So that took a considerable period of time. And then as time went on, actually we've been having to do a lot of collective consultation and redundancy exercises for companies, as they have regrettably, unfortunately, realised that even if we have the furlough scheme, they're not going to be able to afford to continue to pay the number of people they've got when it ends. And then more gradually, now we're having a whole host of more individuals coming to get advice as their company is starting to deal with them as a result of the ending of the or tailing down of the furlough scheme. So really throughout the crisis, it's been fairly busy. What we're really about, though, is providing that commercial, practical, user-friendly advice for companies and individuals. What they want is a solution. This is the problem. How do I solve it? And it's not being too lawyerish about it, but also practically understanding their business and what they need to achieve, and then really helping them achieve it.
Yeah, because I imagine just anything in the law, it's constantly changing, and there's certain quirks and things that people don't understand. And you and I had a discussion recently where an organization was not really thinking through what it needed to do to get rid of one of its senior executives and help them move on successfully without too much drama. And they just hadn't really thought through the consequences, yeah?
Yes, and what we try and educate clients is, look, it doesn't necessarily cost a lot, but pick up the phone, get advice early, because the earlier you start dealing with it in the right way, the easier it's going to be and the less problematic it's going to be. So moral of the story is get advice early, be prepared, and then you know your options, your risks, and what you need to do to achieve your objective.
Yeah, that resonates with one of the other leaders who said, bad news doesn't get better with time. When there's a problem, deal with it. Don't try and hide it and think it might go away, because it doesn't.
And I constantly do this in my work, because one of the things of advice is, look, deal with the problem sooner rather than later, because if you bury your head in the sand, it'll just become a more time-consuming problem.
And expensive.
And you know, there are lots of people, and I often do this when I do this sort of performance management lecture, is why pay someone a salary to do a crap job when you can pay someone the same amount of money to do a good job? And how many people are there in your organization who aren't very good, frankly, and not worth the money? And why haven't you done anything about it? And so the sooner you do deal with people like that, because that's what probationary periods and things like that, trial periods are for. If they're not going to be right, and as I've done it in my own organization, deal with it early, because it's never going to get better.
This is so true, and it also resonates with one of the CEOs said a bit of advice to me years ago, which has stood the test of time. And I've asked other CEOs about this. When they've got a problem with someone, I say, what is it you know now about them? You know it now, but you're going to find out in 12 months' time, but you already know it.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, yeah, he or she is never going to make it. I say, well, look, why are you waiting 12 months? Act on it now, help them find their happiness elsewhere, and let them leave with dignity, with a fair arrangement between you both. But it's just admit now, rather than some of these people don't sleep properly for months and months because they haven't addressed the issue.
No, your gut feel's often right. If your gut feel about someone is, you know, this person isn't really going to make the grade, they're not really what we want, then you need to deal with it.
Yeah, as I think my friend Paul Chapman used to say, make a decision, head, heart, gut, and wallet. I think that's a good way of thinking about the four quadrants. Well, look, let's talk about crises, and particularly the COVID-19 that we've been in since March. It doesn't look like it's going away soon. It's just morphing and changing, and the world of work is very different. You mentioned furlough, you've talked about redundancy and the future of work. How is the crisis affecting the clients that you're advising, and what bits of advice would you pass on to those listening?
Well, I think what seems clear to me and to many others is that things aren't going to be right for some time. They may not be back to normal for 12, 18, 24 months, and even may not even be then. So you need to plan ahead as a business as to what you really are going to need in this crisis, or what you're going to need as you come out of the crisis. And therefore, can you really afford to retain the people you've got? And if not, then you need to do something about it. And I know it's a horrible thing to say, but businesses have to be lean, and they have to adapt to the current circumstances. We also have to adapt, as many of us have done, for working from home. I'm sure I'm not alone by a lot of people are thinking, well, why have I got an office? Do I really need an office? Are we really going to go back to the office in the same sort of way? And I think that's quite clear, because the government are now trying to encourage people to go back, because city centres are a bit like ghost towns. And when I've been into central London a few times, it has been very quiet. And, you know, when's it all going to change? So I think they need to really plan ahead. They need to adapt to, can people work from home? What office do they need? What environment do they need? And also using new technology, because we've all got used to Zoom and Teams and all sorts of technology like that. And actually that's worked quite well. So I think businesses need to be flexible, need to think outside the box, and what they really need to do to plan ahead for the next 2 to 3 years, at least.
Very wise. Very wise. Oh, what else? How have you found the crisis has affected you personally, and those clients you've been dealing with? What have been some of the issues?
Well, personally, I have adapted to working from home. I probably was one in the camp that I didn't really believe in working from home very much, because I think if you want to create the right sort of team culture and spirit within the business, you need to be in the business. But I've had to change to that. And I think other clients have found the same. Obviously, I've had to get used to new technology. Perhaps with my grey hair, I'm not so used to the new technology as many others have been, but we've got used to it. And also thinking about communicating differently with your own team and within businesses, because, you know, if you're not there every day and talking to them, you can't reach over the desk. So how do you then communicate? How do you keep that team spirit, morale going? How do you keep the communication going? And really, it's adapting to the new working environment. And I think we've all had to get used to that and to change accordingly.
Yeah,
very good.
That probably comes on to our next question quite well. Just sort of looking at how that impact has happened. It's really has probably brought people into quite uncomfortable, difficult situations in their own sort of leadership and how they adapt. So we always sort of ask people on the show what you feel makes a good leader, and any leaders that have really sort of inspired you in the past.
Yeah, I had thought about this, and I thought of a few people. I think Winston Churchill was a great leader. I think how he led the country through World War II and had the resilience to carry on and to really help us succeed in that sort of crisis. I think the Queen's been a very good leader, an example in the country. I know it may be old-fashioned. David Attenborough, I think, he's a national treasure. I think the way he has led the climate debate, and that may have stimulated other people like Extinction Rebellion, things like that.
Yeah, what are we going to do without him?
Well, I agree, and he's done so much, hasn't he, for educating people about the climate and the planet, etc. I then think there's some very good leaders in the sports field. Clive Woodward, the Rugby World Cup, led England to that. And actually, I've heard him speak a few times. He's quite an interesting leader, and how he likes to make his team like sponges, so that they are constantly wanting to absorb new information to be the best that they can be. I mean, he was the first one, for example, who gave all of these big rugby players laptops when he first became head of the team. And he wanted them to Google and find out about other players and things like that. And I remember someone laughing about the fact that they see all these huge rugby players trying to play with a laptop with their fingers and things like that. But it did help them. They wanted to absorb and get extra knowledge. And then I think also another great leader at the moment is Toto Wolff of the Mercedes Formula One team. And I think what he has done for that team over a number of years and the successful championships. And I watch Formula One quite a lot, and some of the background information. He doesn't drive the car. He doesn't make it go faster. What he does is he's pulled that team together to be an exceptional unit, and they just perform week after week after week to an excellent level. Yeah. And then, of course, I've been inspired by my father, who did very well in the services. And it's probably through him that this sort of you get a life where you put into it the hard-working attitude, being prepared, and a good leader is someone who leads from the front and inspires his team and makes people want to follow them and to do an excellent job with their bit of the team and what they can perform and contribute.
Yeah. Yeah, I always think that being able to instill that feeling of wanting to work hard rather than having to make people work hard is a real talent that the great leaders have.
Yes, and you can't, as an individual, you can only do so much. But if everyone is working in that way, you can have a fantastically performing team, and that's really what most leaders are really trying to achieve, I think.
Yeah. So on that, what team has really inspired you, and why? So it can be a team that you've worked with, or one that you've witnessed.
Well, I think we had a very good employment team at Thomas Egger, a firm I was at years ago, and we really worked well together. We were in different offices, but we worked well together, and rapidly increased our turnover and the reach of clients and so forth. I think I was in the police. I was part of some what we call reliefs teams, and I think some of those teams and the things we had to deal with, particularly if you're doing things like riot squad duties and having to go to serious public order events, you need people to really pull together and work as a team in order to achieve the objective to make sure people aren't injured and you're looking after the members of the public, etc. And then, of course, when I did the Atlantic, I was the skipper of that team, but we had really prepared and we went through every eventuality, and the whole aim was to enjoy it, but to successfully get to the other end without injury or breakages or things of that nature. and we kind of achieved that. But that was not just me, it was everyone playing their part and doing the bits that they were assigned to do, so that when you come together, you achieve the objective and do it well.
Yeah, definitely. Quick comment just from the stream, just and if anybody's watching, please do comment, ask questions. It's great if people get involved, but I think Don listens to the show just about every week. Hi Don, thanks for joining us. And in the words of Sir Alex Ferguson, hard work is a talent too. So I think he's agreeing with what you're saying there.
Yes, I'm not a massive football supporter, but I agree he was a brilliant leader, wasn't he? Look what he achieved. But he didn't achieve it straight away. It took him a number of years at Man United.
Yeah.
And I think a number of managers now aren't necessarily given the same length of time as perhaps he had when he first started. But certainly he's been an inspiration to a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good point you raised there. And it's my next question, which is really learning from mistakes. And we get better from the experiences we have. And experience comes from mistakes. And often people are not given a second chance. I've been loving the book Sea Stories by Admiral William McRaven, who did a superb video talk, which you find on the internet, called First Make Your Bed. And he wrote a book called First Make Your Bed. Inspiring. You'd love it, being sea. He's a Navy SEAL. But he said, he made a mistake when he was a squadron commander. He was given a second chance. He does believe in giving a second chance when you've made a mistake. If it's a third or fourth, fool on you, because the person keeps making mistakes. But if it's a second chance, what would be your story, Nick, that you would talk about where you personally, as a leader, got it wrong? What was the story? And what did you learn, and how did that shape you today?
So I struggled a bit with this, but I think recruiting the right people for your team is quite a difficult thing to get right. And I think over the years, I've recruited people into my firm who I thought would be right for the role. And in the end, they turned out not to be right. So I got it wrong. I think from that, I've learned to do a lot more research about people, and also to get others involved, so you get other people's opinions. So a lot of people, sometimes they just have one interview and then somebody else interviews again. But how far do they go in terms of background information and things like that? And also, people now leave an online footprint, which people are now able to discover and look back and see what they've done in their past life. And therefore, there's a lot more information out there about people. And I think one of the lessons I've learned is, you need to do that research and really drill down, because otherwise you can get it wrong if you're just superficial about it. And then, I've made mistakes, perhaps in my police career, the things I did that were wrong, and that not in a criminal way or anything like that, but when you're dealing with members of the public, you could handle certain situations better, and you learn from your mistakes about that. And one of the things I did learn from the police was, in talking to all sorts of different people from all walks of life, you learn to adapt the way that you deal with people to ensure that you can get that rapport or communicate with them, so you then don't end up in difficult situations. I remember once going to a flat where a lady had alleged that her partner had assaulted her. I got into the flat, and the guy locked the door and came at me with a knife. And in those circumstances, you kind of learn, your biggest weapon is your tongue and your head, and how you talk to people and how you try and talk them out of it, or talk them down and calm the situation down, in order to make sure that you can deal with the situation and not end up being knifed.
God, that was a hell of. How did he get out of that one? Go on.
Well, I got on the radio to get some help, but I also talked to the individual, and the woman was trying to hold him back as well, and he'd obviously had a lot to drink, and we did manage to calm him down. And then, of course, he was arrested and taken away and all of that sort of stuff. And then, of course, the woman dropped her allegations. So this is quite often happens. People are afraid of taking it further.
Yeah, which is back to the charity with people who modern day slavery, abuse, trafficking, that they don't want to shop, as they say it, their abuser, and they would rather withdraw and carry on living with someone who's abusing them. Yeah,
and the other thing is, I think also you've got to bring people with you. You can be a leader and lead from the front, but you've got to bring people with you. You can't just say, I'm doing it my way, this is the only way. You know, people will understand why you're doing it and why you want to do it that way, and you've got to bring them with you, because otherwise you can lose them, and in that way you won't have a high performing team. You'll have a rotten apple in that team, or someone who's holding everyone else back. And so you have to learn about that and management and getting people on the right wavelength.
Well, Ben and I often said, learning from leaders like you and others that we're fortunate and honoured to have on the series, we go, God, I wish I'd known that when I first began out in my career. I look back and I think, as a young officer in the army, how inept I was. And if only I knew the things I know now, God, I would have been such a great leader, and not the very average, crumbly, sort of poor leader that I was, and learning a long road of learning. But, from that point of view, best bit of advice, what's the bit of advice you wish you'd been given at the very beginning of your career, when you went into merchant banking, for example? What was the one bit of advice you wish you'd been given way back there that would have served you so well?
Well, listen and observe and learn. I think that's certainly something I wish I'd done more about. Needing to bring people with you, as I've already mentioned, but also, if something's not right, do something about it. A lot of people you could be a victim or a chooser. So you say, poor me, isn't it terrible? It's a terrible situation. Whereas actually, I think if something's not right, you need to say, okay, what can I do about this? What are my options? What else could I think about? And that's why I've changed my career a few times, actually, because things weren't right. And I decided to do something about it. And even if you look into different situations and you reject them because you don't think it's right, you'll feel better in yourself that you've done that. And you need to find the right way and the right thing for you to do, rather than just stay stuck in the job. I mean, do you live to work, or do you work to live? And I think, we spend so much time at work and what we're doing, we have to do something we enjoy and we want to be good at, not just stay in a job. And I think a lot of people sometimes, unfortunately, can't really afford to take risks and change because they've got families to feed and things of that nature. But at least you can, hopefully do better in what you're doing. But that's the sort of advice I've kind of would like to have known earlier. And that's the sort of mantra I try and teach my children to think about.
I think it's very good, that victim or chooser. I like that. And over to you, Ben.
Being willing to take some of those risks can be quite difficult sometimes, to take those sort of jumps with your career. It can be quite tough to do. And just out of curiosity, what was the sort of biggest risk that you took in your sort of career path, do you think?
Well, I left the merchant banking and went into the police. That was quite a radical step, people may have sort of said. But I don't regret the time in the police. I learned a lot in that time, certainly about life. And having been away at boarding school since the age of 7, I had quite a bit of life to learn. And then I wanted to do a degree, and obviously I did that part-time in the police, which was quite hard work in 3 years. But I'm glad I then decided I wanted to do something more with it, and I went and got a professional qualification. So I suppose the biggest risk was leaving the police, going back to sort of law school for a year. I had a mortgage at the time, and my father helped me with that. And then obviously I then obviously qualified to be a barrister and to go down that sort of route. So that was probably the biggest risk. And then from leaving the bar to becoming a solicitor wasn't so much of a risk. And also, I suppose setting up your own business, that was quite a risk 10 years ago. And it was a client who persuaded me to do it. And I thought, well, why not? Let's just get on with it, and that's what I did. So I don't regret that now.
And was that just coming out of the financial crisis?
Yes.
So you started, so probably a good
well,
time.
It was also I started it also at the time I was going through a divorce, so that's stressful episode. But
get all the stress done all at once.
I did it, and it's worked. So I'm pleased I did it. So I think you have to do something about something if it's not right, and move on. And I think you'll feel better for it.
Yeah, definitely. I stopped running my business during the financial crisis because it was it destroyed my business. But another great learning moment. But and this comes on to our next question, just about sort of learning from your darkest moments. So the experience you've sort of gone through, is there a sort of darkest moment, and what did you learn?
Well, I think, probably my darkest moment was my divorce. I realised that I had a choice. Do I stay in an unhappy marriage for the sake of the children, or do something about it? And I decided to do something about it. And then I had to take it step by step, at my ex-wife's pace, as it were, to move her in the right direction. And we did that. And at the time, someone advised me to get some counselling. And I did that, and that really helped. And actually, it's quite interesting with that counsellor when you look back at the journey you took and how you did it. So my achievement, what I wanted to achieve, was to become divorced, but for it not to interfere with my relationship with my children, and to be done in an amicable and reasonable way, where we didn't have to go to court or do any of those sort of horrible antagonistic things. And it took me 2 years, but by the end of it, I'd achieved that objective. We still speak. My children have never asked me anything about it, and we have a good understanding relationship. And I'm a lot happier as a result. I think probably she is. It's a sad indictment, but that was the right thing, I think, to do at the time, and I just got on and did it. And you do go through some dark times, but you have to remind yourself why you're doing it, and you're doing the right thing. And this could be also in terms of difficult business decisions as well. You need to know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and have the energy and determination to get through and succeed. Yeah.
I think there's a sort of healthy thing that I tell myself in tough times, that actually it's something I think applies to almost any time in your life, good or bad. This will pass. So if you think that you're going to have your time with your children all the time, you won't enjoy all the moments with your children. The bad times will pass. Get through to the other side. I think it's a good way of sort of looking at things.
I think there's also that awful cliche, I know you're only on this earth once, but actually as time's gone on, I began to think about that far more. And that as you especially get older, and therefore actually you can enjoy life more if you allow yourself to. So you need to be doing the right things to ensure you do that, and you will enjoy life more.
Definitely. A couple of comments just from the stream. So Catherine has just said, have you ever had a mentor or a coach? I believe sort of looking at your sort of career sort of mentor or coach.
Yes, I have. I know Catherine. Hello, Catherine. Yes, I have had a coach from time to time, and I think everyone probably needs that. And really, I think coaches are very useful, because what they do is they ask you the right questions, in supplying the answers, you then helps you know what you need to do. So I think they're very useful. I agree.
Definitely. And also from Ivana, what gave you the confidence to actually take those career risks?
Because I knew it was the right thing to do. So as I've said, I looked at the options, explored those options, and thought, right, well, okay, this is what I think I should do. And I thought, I've got to have the confidence to go and do it. And because I was convinced that it was the right thing for me to do, I didn't think it was too much of a risk. So I just got on with it.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we sort of touched on darkest moment, but it'd be nice to sort of touch on a more lighter side. Have you got any humorous stories from your?
I remember Yes, I remember having, when I was at Thomas Egger, I had a team, three of us, and we were going to see a new client for lunch, or prospective client for lunch. It was a TV company, and we were going to meet the HR director. So I said to the guys on the way over, look, make sure you behave yourself. You know, if we do this well, we'll get a very good client from it. So we got to this restaurant and sat down, and we had a nice lunch. And then I was looking at the dessert menu, and there was on the dessert hot chocolate banana dessert. And I said, oh, I quite like the idea of that. So this lady, HR lady, said, well, why don't you have one? Go on. So a couple of the others wanted dessert. So we had this hot chocolate dessert. Anyway, it arrived at the table on this sort of metal plate. And she was sitting on my right in a T-shirt and trousers, because it was TV. So you imagine they were dressed down quite casually. And my other two members of the team were opposite. So as I put my fork to go into this banana dessert, unfortunately my fingers touched the bottom of this red hot palette. I picked my fork back and I flicked chocolate and banana all down her front and her hair, you see. And you could see the look of horror on her face for a moment. Anyway, she rushed off to the toilet, and my two team members said, thank God that wasn't me. Anyway, she came back and I apologized profusely, blah, blah. And I sent her some flowers the next day saying, forgive me for the banana drama. And she emailed back saying, you're totally forgiven, you've got the work. So having thrown chocolate and banana down her front, we got the work. So that was quite funny, quite interesting.
That's very good.
That's one way to break the ice.
I thought she was going to return by slapping it all over you, like with the sort of custard pie thing.
No, she was very good-natured, but it could have gone one of two ways. Luckily, it went the right way, but you know.
A banana drama.
Yeah.
And then from humour to, what about your proudest moments in your life when you look back on the many things you've done?
Yeah, I think I suppose I became head of house largely because I was at boarding school, and what I'd done is I'd shown some leadership there, according to the housemaster. Anyway, we had an inter-house gymnastic competition, and I managed to persuade most of the house to go along and do a routine. And although they weren't very good, we amassed so many marks that nobody else could beat us in the final. So he congratulated me on that, and all the other houses complained. So they then said, okay, well, let's go back to normal. We'll just agree we'll do it on those who go into the final. So we went into the final, we had the final, and we lost it by about half a mark. And the housemaster came and said, well done, Nick, congratulations. It's very difficult having to change these things. Anyway, 2 days later, they came back and said they'd made an error in the calculation, and we won it by half a mark. So as a result of all that, he made me head of. So that was head of house. I remember becoming an equity partner at Thomas Egger, so that was a good moment. Starting Hine Legal was a proud moment, and then obviously I've had 4 lovely children, so really pleased about that. And then finally, deciding to do the Atlantic, sell the Atlantic, and executing it and doing it well. Again, that was a nice moment to think, well, that's something we achieved and we did it well. So a number of different things in life, but those are sort of some of the milestones I can think of.
Yeah, and it's a bit like life. And if we can just pull up, Don McIntyre made a lovely comment here, if Ben just brings it up, on your point about enjoying life. It is about the word again. It's a lifestyle choice, and I find the Stoics and Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca give us great wisdom. You can choose. The many things you have no control over, but what you have control over is your own actions and your own thoughts and choices that you personally take. So great advice. Thank you, Don.
Yeah, one thing I people say about sleeping well and actually having a positive attitude is someone suggested to me, the last thing before you go to sleep at night, think of 3 good things that have happened to you that day. And that hopefully puts your mindset when you go to bed in a positive frame of mind, and then you wake up hopefully in a positive frame of mind as well.
Yeah, and very, very true. And I have almost formalized that bit of advice somebody gave me is a book called the 5minutejournal.com. It's a nice hardbound book that you buy directly from the firm. And in that, you have to put about the 3 things that went well that day. But you begin the day with 5 minutes on what do you appreciate, 3 things you appreciate in your life, and 3 things that you look forward to in the day, and who you are. It's sort of affirmation of yourself as a character. I'm strong, I'm resilient, I'm a loving husband, father, whatever it might be. But I find that very good, doing it day and night, and it's very helpful. We've got a comment here from Mike. Can we put on Mike Morrison's comment there, Ben? Thank you for sharing some difficult moments in your life, Nick. What drives you forward? Of course, we all have choices to make, but what is it that really motivates you? Because you've done an amazing amount of different things. So what drives you forward?
I think it's determination, really. You know, someone described me as Ronsil. I do what it says on the tin. Really, it's about, you know, working out where you're going and getting on and doing it. And being that victim chooser type scenario again. So obviously a pretty driven person. I want to do well and achieve things, and basically that's my sort of mantra. I just get on with it. And every day, even if you have a rubbish day, every day is a new day. So you can park yesterday if you didn't feel particularly good about that, or you didn't think you did particularly well. But today is a new day. You can get on and, you know, make a change and make a difference. So get on and do it, and so that's a kind of sort of mantra.
Yeah, thanks, Nick, and thanks, Mike. If that reminds me of that again, little mantra that yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery. Live for today, be in this moment. You can only step in the same river twice. Yeah. And then, what about the favorite that always Ben used to teach me about? Quick fire questions on healthy, wealthy, and wise. What would be your top tip on keeping healthy that you've found you've practically applied? Well,
healthy, I think exercise is key, and it's very difficult, I know, with busy lives to actually do exercise. So I've forced myself to, I've got a trainer I have once a week. In fact, he's coming this evening. At least once a week, I have a personal trainer, and I get on and do a series of exercises, and then I do the rest myself. Wealthy, well, don't live beyond your means. So you need to manage that, and also, you know, getting a financial advisor at the right stages in life. I think pension, although people don't save enough early enough for pension. I know it's a bit of an anathema to young people, and the government is now forcing people to pay into pension schemes if they so wish, which is a good thing. But the more you know, the sooner you get involved in that and understand that. And I remember telling my children, I said, well, do you understand what a pension is? I've never really sat down and explained to you about bank accounts and finances and mortgage and overdrafts. Would it be helpful to you? And they said yes. And it hadn't really occurred to me that I should, you know, because they get a bank account, you just assume that they know what they're doing. But actually, they're young and they don't realize these things. So I've had a good chat with them about that. And then wise, well, it's about learning from your experiences and your mistakes, because you will make them. And, you know, wanting to be a better person, and, you know, really you get out of life what you put into it. And that's kind of the attitude. And also, if something's not right, as I've said already, then change it or do something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And just sort of looking to the future, what would you like to be your sort of legacy?
Well, I think hopefully my legacy is in my children and what they do in life. But also I've worked with a number of other lawyers, and I hope that in working with me, that certainly some of them I think have learned a few things which I hope that they take on and use in their sort of practice. I do have some ambitions and plans going forward. I plan to sell the world in 3 or 4 years' time, so I'm already making plans for that. And wanting to enjoy life and thinking of retirement. I know it's a terrible thing to say, isn't it? But I don't necessarily want to be doing this forever. So really, hopefully, I will then start to learn to teach sailing, and can obviously impart my knowledge and skills in that direction if I decide to scale down the legal advice. So that's kind of.
So that would that be another risky career move?
No, I don't think it'd be risky. There's not much money in it, really. So hopefully, what wealth I have amassed, as it were, such as it is, not that great, but hopefully that'll tide me through. So I can really enjoy the hobby that I have and wanting to pass it on to others.
Yeah, that'd be quite an undertaking going around the world.
Well, yeah, I've already sort of thought about the boat. I've been reading books about it. And it's not doing it too quickly so that you actually can enjoy it, because a lot of these around the world sort of groups, they do it in quite a short period of time. So you need to really space it over a few years, 3 years really, and you just do bits over the 3 years. And that way you've got the time to enjoy it. And also, there's nothing worse than having a schedule to meet, because then you're having to often go out in weathers that you might not want to go out in.
Yeah,
so that's a sort of
definitely
idea about that. And then obviously the next stage probably just do around Britain over the next few years. Closer to home before going elsewhere.
Yeah, it must take some preparation, both physically and mentally, to get ready for something like that.
Yes, it's a very different. I mean, we won't go on a tangent. It's a very different mindset from just coastal hopping, because you've got to think about the water. How are you going to get water if you're away a week, sort of then to food? How are you going to generate power to run all the systems on the boat? What about medical stuff? Because you're not going to have anyone nearby to help you, and so there's all sorts of things you need to think about and plan for that type of sort of voyage.
And what sort of crew would you have?
Probably 3 or 4 of us, actually.
Right.
And what we might do then is we do the long passages, and the wives come out to the nice bits. So when we're in the French Polynesian islands, they can come and enjoy the bits when we go around there. Whereas the long ocean passages, we probably would do it on our own rather than worrying about having wives with us who might not like the look of the waves or the storm or things like that.
So you're going to have a group of people that you know well and can.
Well, the crew I did the Atlantic with are pretty interested, so at least 2 or 3 of them, and I think we've all more or less there. So hopefully, and that worked very well actually, because you find out what people are like when you're away at sea for weeks on end, and what they really like living in quite close proximity.
Yeah, bad habits and all. So just sort of looking at some tips around leadership, and it's probably relevant for the choppy waters ahead in both the sort of economy and in employment. What would you say are your sort of top tips for leading in this sort of recovery time?
Well, first of all, deal with the problem sooner rather than later. Which I've already sort of mentioned. Otherwise, it becomes a worse problem. So the sooner you deal with it, and that goes in life, personally and also business-wise. Don't put off to tomorrow what you can do today. If you know, but you also need to prioritize, and then obviously plan for the worst and hope for the best. If you do proper planning and you think about eventualities, then your ability to deal with them and to tackle difficult issues are far more enhanced because you've already thought about it.
Yeah.
So those would be my sort of top sort of tips. And then obviously finally, if something's not right, do something about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I think all individually and as businesses, we probably need to look at this sort of crisis planning in a more pragmatic way for the future, so we're more prepared for these sort of events, which, although unusual, they are going to happen again, and they've been predicted so well. It's quite bad that we were so ill prepared for that. Okay, so final question, and we always just ask for a book recommendation. So this can be something that was a book which has been important to you in your life or career, or just something that you've really enjoyed during lockdown.
Well, I've been reading a lot of sailing books during lockdown, as you probably imagine, with my plans ahead. But one book that did spring to mind, and it is a sailing book, but it's called Team Spirit, and it's written by a guy called Brendan Hall, who was appointed the skipper of a boat called Spirit of Australia in the 2009 to 2010 Clipper Around the World Yacht Race. And he basically decided that not only did he want to become a skipper, but he wanted to skipper and win the race. So it's his story about how he achieved that objective, and he did win it. So it was his skills and preparation which meant that the 44 people, because there's only 18 crew at any one time, but 44 people over the time of the race, because there's several legs, worked as a team and in the right direction to achieve the objective of winning. And basically 80% of it is man management, and the remaining 20% is skills, etc. And it was his story about that, which I found firstly interesting because it involves sailing, but secondly, from a management perspective, I think a lot of the sort of things he did would work just as well in normal businesses rather than just being a sailing crew.
Fantastic. Well, look, Nick, thank you for that. And before I say goodbye and thanks to you, please stay on and we'll chat with you when the show finishes.
Okay,
but just to look forward for everybody else, this is every Tuesday at 5 till 6. Next week, we have Josh Graff, the LinkedIn VP Marketing Solution for EMEA and LATAM and the UK country lead. The week after, we have Paul Cooper, entrepreneur, investor, and board advisor. Then Philippa Snare, who's superb. We've had her on the show a year ago, the SVP of the Trade Desk. Hopefully then we have Tony Danker from the CBI, the CEO of Be The Business. Then Anna Baird, the head of culture and innovation and customer success at Google, one from you, Ben. Simon Brewer, the CEO of Vantage Investment. Possibly Paolo Christou, the CEO of Pret A Manger. And then someone from the UAE and Devon. And then finally in November, Devon Harris, the who was in the Jamaican bobsleigh team, the guy who did Cool Runnings, and he was in the Jamaican Defence.
Fantastic film.
Cool dude. So we got some great people. And Nick, I just want to say a big thanks from Ben and myself and everybody who's been listening. Don McIntyre's there saying, thanks, Nick, some great insights. And it was really very helpful and lovely. As with all our inspiring leaders, you come across with the three hums: humility, humanity, and a good amount of humor. So thanks for your time. We've really enjoyed it, Ben and I. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks very much, Nick.